Hanchakakyaw, papastim tikasun. So welcome everyone. My name is Whitehorse. Miyogisagawanuch. So it's a nice day today. And today I'm going to be teaching you all about how to make a moose call. Because we've already gone out to the bush and we've collected our wasquay, our birch bark. And now I'm going to show you the rest of the process in making a moose call. So after we've collected our wasquay, what happens is it tends to dry out a little and try and curl up like this. Some people make their moose call as soon as they take it off the tree. I like to take my time, take it home, because there is a way to soften this wasquay up and make it so that you can fold it and move it around easy again and shape it the way you want. And the way to do that is with biskutio, or with fire, using heat. Now we're not going to put this directly on flame. We just want the heat of the fire, and it'll make it pliable and easy to form, and we'll be able to form it any way we want. So there's some things I need in preparation. So I've got my fire starter here, which again is just some wasquay, some birch bark, some little kindling, and some little bigger sticks for when the fire gets going. So we're going to start get our fire going here, and make sure that we get some good heat and embers coming off of there, just so we can get our moose call made, our muswa tahatsagan. The other thing we need is some little branches, and these are just little branches from wasquay. So I've taken some of the birch branches, and we're just going to be using those as part of the process of making our moose call. So with these, they're going to be our little pins that are going to hold our birch bark in place once we shape our muswa tahatsagan, our moose collar. So as soon as I light our fire, I'm going to go and prepare these into little pins, maybe just a finger length pieces, and I'm going to put a little point on one end just to make them look like little pins. But we'll need some of those pins for holding our muswa tahatsagan in place. But for now, I'm going to start our fire, and I'll just break off our fire starter here, our wasquay, so that it lights and it's not all flat. I want to kind of fluff it up. So that it makes kind of a little mound on there, so that when it does light, it's not going to fall flat and smother on me. And once again, if you've watched the video on fire teachings, usually when we light a fire, it's just good practice, just showing respect for the fire. And in this way, when we show respect for the fire, we know we're going to use fire respectfully. We're not going to let it get away on us and cause a forest fire or anything like that. But it's also just paying respects to our ancestors who believed that the fire is alive, it has a spirit, it's living. So it's just respecting that living spirit of the fire. So I'm going to place some of my kindling on top of that as well, some of the smaller stuff, just so that once it does start, it's going to get me some good flame out of these. And again, I'm just making a sort of little mound here, just to let a lot of air in there, because I don't want to smother the fire. I want air getting in there, because that's what's gonna, we need air, oxygen, and flame to keep our fire going. So we want to make sure oxygen can get in there, air gets in there to light our fire. And as with the fire teachings, if you've watched the video on fire teachings, I'm going to just ask the fire. So when I first light this and I go to light the fire, I'm going to ask it, I'm going to say to it, grandfather fire, teach me something good. So when I say that, I'm asking the spirit of the fire to teach me something good. And the belief is that when we do that, the spirit of the fire will bring a teaching to us sometime today, a good teaching. So when I first light the flame and put it here, I'm going to be asking Grandfather Fire to give me a teaching today. So again, just out of respect, I remove my hat before I light the flame. And we're taught that anytime we're trying to respect the old teachings, when we light a fire, we don't directly light into the fire. We can take a lighter and light away from the fire, and say light something like this and then put that in the fire. But we're taught to try not to use lighters directly on the fire. We're taught if we're going to have to do that, we use a match, wooden match, and we put that in the fire as our lighting the fire. So again, if I had a wooden match, I could put the match there, but we're taught not to put lighters there, just out of respect for our traditional teachings, since a lighter wasn't part of our traditional teachings. So I'm going to light this, then I'm going to ask Grandfather Fire to teach me something good today. Teach me something good today. And another thing about the fire teachings, we're taught that when we light a fire, we're taught not to blow on the fire, because with the fire, if it's going to help us or teach us something good, it'll light on its own. We're taught don't blow in a fire, especially if you're using that fire in, say, a ceremony like a food offering or a sweat lodge. You're lighting the rocks. We're taught don't blow in the fire, because it's like you're rushing Mosum Skutio. It's like you're rushing him, and we're taught don't blow into the fire, because it's like you're saying, hurry up, get going. If Mosum Skutio is going to work for us, he'll light in his own time and in a good way. I'm just going to move out of the smoke here and let Mosum Skutio get going here. While I'm doing that, I'm just going to take my little branches here and start preparing them. So of course you need some kind of okoman or some kind of knife, and I'm just going to cut off the branches here, because again I'm going to need pins from here, and I'm just going to make a lot of pins, so when I get started with the with the waskway, I want to make sure that everything's ready to go, because once I heat the waskway over the fire, I have a very short time to shape it before it starts to stiffen up again. And I don't want it to stiffen up, because if it stiffens up, then it's not going to shape the way I want, but most of all, it's probably going to crack. So I'm just getting a bunch of short pieces of sticks here ready as my pins, while I wait for Mosum Skutio to get nice and hot. So again, I don't need my pins to be really long. They're just about a finger length long, or they don't have to be exact, because they're just going to be pins to hold the waskway in place. So I've got a fair amount of pins here now, and I'm just going to make a little point on them just so they go into the waskoy when I need them to. And we're getting some nice heat off of Musum Scotio, so that's a good sign that he's happy with what we're doing and he's willing to help us today. So I'm just going to move to the other side here. It's a little hot over there. I've got my waskoy here, got my pins ready. Just going to start to put some of the bigger stuff on here so my feed Musum Scotio, so my fire doesn't go out when I need it. So now, once I'm heating my waskoy, my birch bark, I don't want it to catch fire. So I'm just going to hold it kind of high and we'll see it start to get pliable. Even though this has been sitting for a bit, it's dried out a bit, I'll still be able to use the heat to make it pliable again. So once it's pliable enough to form, I want to form it into a cone, because when we make our moose tahatsugan, our moose collar, we want it very small on one side, big on the other side, to project our voice and to help us make a louder call. So I'm just going to make it into basically a cone. So I think that's warm enough now, and I'm going to start just slowly heating it up, and we'll see it start to soften up and become easier to use. Again, I don't want it to catch fire, I just want it to heat up to be able to shape again. So that's already getting soft again. And a lot of times you'll see it has a natural tendency, once you heat it up, it tries to open right up so that the outside part of the tree is how it was, is the part that's showing again. And of course, like everything, it does take a bit of time. And again, I don't want it to catch fire, I just want to use the heat to soften up once again, and it's getting easier to open up. Again, I'm being careful not to catch it on fire. And I don't want to keep it away from the heat for too long, because it'll start to stiffen up on me again. And you'll see it gets kind of softer and easier to move. Whereas if I try to open up that one, the one that's hasn't been heated, it's probably going to end up breaking on me, and because it does become very brittle. So now I've gotten it to where it's fairly easy to move around now, and it is getting heated up here. Just a little bit on the inside. Okay. So now I can open that up. It's been heated up. Now I don't need all of this, because you see in order to make a sphere, so if I'm going, into a cone, then I've got more than enough here to make a cone. So I'm just going to trim it down. Again, taking my knife, and I'm just going to go straight and trim some off. Because if I have too much on there, it just gets hard for me to work with. And I'm just making a straight line, trimming it off. So that's going to be a little bit easier to work with. And again, I don't want it cooling off. We'll heat it up again. And now we can see it already trying to form itself into a cone. So I'm going to start shaping it into a cone. And I can do that by just making one end small and then just opening up the other end. And this one sort of cracked on me. So again, make that one end small, shape it into a cone. So I'm just holding this here and I'm spreading it out from the inside, moving it outwards so I get that cone shape. So that's a pretty good cone shape there. I'm just going to hold that in place. Take one of my little pins here, and just at the edge up here, I'm going to poke a little hole through so my pin can go in there. I'm going to put my little birch twig pin in there. Now that's going to hold that in place while it hardens. So I'm going to do the same at the bottom. Spread that out again so it's nice and firm on there. I'm going to make a little cut through, careful about my fingers, and then put another pin in the bottom. This one I want kind of long because I'm not going to push it all the way through, but I'm going to push it so it touches the other side up here. So it sort of goes across, you can see it there. So that pin goes there. So now I see stuff like this that curls up, that's fine. Because after it cools off and hardens like this, you can just go and shape this. So all of this part that curled up here, I'm just going to cut that off. Just to make it look a little neater. And it's not going to be blocking my sound. And you can see I've got my little cone shape there. So that is the shape of my moose collar. Now I see here that the inside as well, it sort of curled up a little bit more than I want to. And with that, all I'm going to do is just put another pin in there. So I'll just, you see how this curled up? I'm going to move my pin there so it opens it up. And I'm going to put another pin here where I see where this is trying to curl in, because I want that open. So very carefully, another little cut, and stick my pin in there just to hold that in place. And there we go. Again, here I want this open, so I just might shave off this. And open that up. So I've got my little moose collar here. So with this, what I want to do now is I'm not going to clip these off yet, but eventually I want to shorten these so they're not sticking out. But I want this just to cool and into that shape. It'll hold that shape. But that's going to eventually be my moose collar. My moose tahatchagan. Even now I can shave these off just so they're not sticking right up on me. But I don't want them to pull out of there, because they're still doing a job holding it in place. But that's good for now while it hardens up. And eventually that'll be, some people like to fancy them up, so instead of using pins here, they'll use like sinew, and they'll sew the seams. They'll put it perfectly round here, and sometimes even put another piece of birch bark around it just to form the mouthpiece and just fancy it up a little. So once we look inside there, you can see that there's little pieces. Some people as well, when they're making their tahatchagan, they like to just run some flame through there just to burn out those little pieces that are sticking in there. And you could see all the little loose pieces. So if you just run that over a fire, it'll burn those out really quick. Or you can just run your fingers through there and clear it out if you can get in there. That'll make it nice and clear. But that again is what makes our voice and our moose calls louder. And that's how you make moose tahatchagan, using the waskway that we've gathered from the bush. So again, some people make them huge. Like I've seen some that are really huge, and those are the longer they are, the more it projects your voice. But just for regular moose calling, this is a decent size, because it's easy to carry around, and you're not going to have this big bulky thing to carry around. But that, my friends, is how you make moose tahatchagan using waskway. Semaga.